The 1970s was a time like no other, a decade that defied conventions, pushed boundaries, and left an indelible mark on pop culture, entertainment, and the way we live our lives today. From the birth of disco and the golden age of rock to technological breakthroughs and unforgettable news events, the 70s had it all. In this video, we're counting down the 10 best things that made the 1970s an absolute blast. The 1970s represented a much simpler time before the advent of modern technology and the constant connectivity that now dominates our lives. People lived at a slower pace, with fewer distractions and less pressure to be constantly available. This allowed for a greater sense of peace and relaxation, as well as more time to focus on the things that truly mattered, like family, friends, and personal hobbies. Without the constant barrage of emails, text messages, and social media notifications, people were able to be more present in their day-to-day lives. Conversations were face-to-face, and quality time with loved ones was cherished. Children spent more time playing outside, exploring their neighborhoods, and using their imaginations, rather than being glued to screens. The work-life balance was also different in the 1970s. While professional ambition was still important, there was less of an expectation to be available 24/7 or to constantly chase after the next promotion or raise. People could enjoy their evenings and weekends without the constant pull of work-related tasks or responsibilities. Additionally, the pace of life was generally slower, and there was less emphasis on instant gratification. People were more patient and content with the simpler pleasures in life, like enjoying a good book, listening to music, or spending time in nature. Overall, the 1970s represented a time when life felt less hectic and overwhelming. While technology and progress have brought many benefits, there's something to be said for the simpler, more relaxed way of life that defined the 70s. The 1970s marked the birth of the video game industry with the release of groundbreaking consoles like the Atari 2600 and the rise of iconic games like Pong and Space Invaders. These early video games not only provided endless hours of entertainment for kids and adults alike, but also paved the way for the multi-billion-dollar gaming industry we know today. Although the concept of video games had been around since the 1950s, it wasn't until the 1970s that they truly entered the mainstream. The release of the Atari 2600 in 1977 was a game changer, bringing video games into living rooms across America and introducing millions to the wonders of interactive entertainment. Classic games like Pong, with its simple yet addictive gameplay, captured the imagination of an entire generation. Players would huddle around television sets, eagerly passing the controller back and forth, competing to be the ultimate ping-pong champion. As the decade progressed, video games became increasingly sophisticated, with the release of groundbreaking titles like Space Invaders and Asteroids. These games not only showcased the potential of video games as a storytelling medium, but also demonstrated the growing technical capabilities of the hardware. Beyond the games themselves, the 1970s also saw the emergence of a new subculture surrounding video games. Arcades became popular hangout spots, where kids and teenagers would gather to test their skills and compete for high scores. These arcades fostered a sense of community and friendly rivalry, creating lasting memories for those who grew up during this era. The birth of disco. The 1970s saw the rise of a new and electrifying music genre that took the world by storm: disco. With its pulsating beats, dazzling fashion, and infectious energy, disco music became the soundtrack of the decade, capturing the spirit of the times and forever shaping popular culture. Emerging from the underground club scene in cities like New York and Philadelphia, disco quickly exploded into the mainstream, thanks to artists like the Bee Gees, Donna Summer, and the Village People. Beyond its impact on music and fashion, disco also played a significant role in breaking down social barriers and bringing diverse communities together. Disco clubs were often havens for members of the LGBTQ+ community, providing a safe space to celebrate their identities and forge lasting connections. While disco was taking over the dance floors, the 1970s also witnessed the golden age of rock music. Legendary bands like Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, and Queen captivated audiences with their iconic albums and electrifying live performances. The decade also saw the emergence of punk rock, with bands like the Ramones and the Sex Pistols challenging the status quo with their raw, rebellious sound. Television experienced a golden age in the 1970s, with shows like MASH, All in the Family, and The Mary Tyler Moore Show capturing the cultural zeitgeist and redefining the medium. These shows tackled controversial topics and pushed boundaries, paving the way for more daring and thought-provoking television in the years to come. While the first personal computers were developed in the late 1970s, their impact would be felt for decades to come. The introduction of machines like the Apple II and the Commodore PET ushered in a new era of computing, laying the groundwork for the tech revolution that would follow and changing the way we live, work, and communicate. For kids growing up in the 1970s, Saturday mornings were a sacred ritual, spent glued to the television watching the latest animated adventures. From classics like Scooby-Doo, the Flintstones, and the Jetsons, to the introduction of iconic characters like the Smurfs and Fat Albert, Saturday morning cartoons provided endless hours of entertainment and became an integral part of the 70s childhood experience. The 1970s witnessed the birth of a new and thrilling subculture, skateboarding. What started as a niche activity quickly gained mainstream popularity, with skate parks and competitions popping up across the country. Skateboarding not only became a beloved pastime for kids, but also a symbol of rebellion and self-expression. And that wraps up our look at the 10 best things that defined the iconic 1970s decade. From the birth of disco and the golden age of rock to groundbreaking movies, technological innovations, and the simple joys of a less stressful time, the 70s truly had something for everyone. Whether you lived through that era or are just learning about it now, there's no denying the lasting impact the 1970s has had on our culture, our entertainment, and our way of life. It was a time of freedom, self-expression, and pushing boundaries in ways that continue to shape and inspire us today. So take a moment to appreciate the groovy tunes, far-out fashion, and unforgettable moments that made the 70s so truly unique. And who knows, maybe it's time to break out those bell-bottoms and disco balls and relive the magic all over again. Thanks for watching, and be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay updated on all our latest videos. We'll see you next time as we continue exploring the decades that have defined our world.